So we're talking about boyfriends and girlfriends, which I find to be a really interesting situation when you have 5 to 11s, because we sort of think by the time you have a 5-year-old, you're like, I'm not going to have to think about this for another 10 years. And then it all of a sudden pops up and your 7-year-old is announcing that 4 people have girlfriends or boyfriends. And you're like, when did this become a thing? And so I thought we'd talk about it, because I think sometimes we get stuck feeling uncomfortable or unequipped or just out of our depth when we come to talking about boyfriends and girlfriends with our kids. So I thought we'd roll the dice and talk about it, because why not? So if you're in a particular situation, or if you have deep and powerful wisdom about this, please feel free to type it in as we go. I'd love to answer any questions you have, any quandaries you're stuck in, any what ifs that you have that I can try to answer for you. But as usual, I just want to give you a few things to think about. There's no formula. You know your kid better than I know your kid. But I just thought I'd get us started as we casually talk over drinks, and just open those things up, and then we'll answer any questions. I'll pray for you, and I'll send you on your way. So one of the things that I was really reflecting about is that the concept of romance and the concept of having a boyfriend or girlfriend can become quite central to our children's story life, partially because of the romance stories that we hear, but also because it just becomes the culture, and particularly in primary school, it can just sort of tick along. It's like sometimes your kid comes home and sings songs that you remember singing in school. There are songs that I sang in my primary school in America that my British child sings, that he learned in a British school in the north of England. There's like these songs that just continue on, this sort of culture that perpetuates. And this boyfriend-girlfriend thing is one of them. And I find it really significant that we can feed into that as we tell our children the story of what lives look like. And so as we start off saying, don't worry, one day you'll find someone and you'll get married and have babies, and I'll get grandchildren, and it'll be great. And that sort of sense of getting married is inevitable, and that sense of it being these tick box stages that you work through. I don't think we mean to put it in there, but that idea that that's sort of what an expected life looks like puts relationships, that boyfriend-girlfriend thing, front and center in their minds. And actually, it's really, really useful to reframe that for our kids, to just talk a lot about how you and God are on a great and grand adventure of your life, and you have no idea what you and God are going to do together in your life. And so you are going to have a job you may never even know exists right now. You may be going to a different country. You may be something that you never thought. You may produce something. You may invent something. You may write a book. You have no idea. You and God are going on a great adventure, and you will move places and meet people, and it'll be great. And some people along that journey find someone they want to do family with, and they get married to them and start a family. And other people are like on this grand and great adventure with God and choose not to do that, or don't find the right person. And whatever you chose to do with what your family looks like, God has created around us friends and us as family and church communities and the place where you work. And there are so many people that you do life with. Whether or not you choose one person to do a family with is part of a small part of a really big journey that God has for you. And so as you do that, as you make that the main story, then it reduces the significance of first you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And I think it's not like we sit around and try to indoctrinate our children into those things, but it just swirls around them. And sometimes it needs us as parents to wade in and re-articulate what the journey of their life is. The journey of their life doesn't center around romance. The journey of their life centers around God and the great adventure and plans and purposes He has for them and the people that He chooses to surround them with. So I think when we do that, it creates space for our kids to be single for a long time, or to find that person early, and we create that space for their relationships to be part of the grander journey. Does that make sense? The second thing that I think is really useful for this age when we're talking about boyfriends and girlfriends is actually talking about friendships with multiple genders, because it gets real intense real fast when it turns into girls have, well, at least we called it cooties, but, you know, girls have cooties and boys are gross, and this sort of sense of gender wars. And so therefore, if you want to be friends with someone of an opposite gender, it must be because they're your boyfriend. And so the only concept that primary schools sometimes allow for being friends of different genders is this romance thing. And actually, we as parents can wade in and say, God put a little bit of himself in everybody. It says we're made in God's image. And in the body of Christ, that's how God says we're never designed to be alone. We're designed to fit together. And you may find people who are boys that you can be really good friends with and who are excellent people to have in your life. And you may find people who are girls who are excellent people to have in your life. And it doesn't matter whether they're boys or girls. What matters is that you're choosing friends wisely. And why would you just choose to say, I'm looking for a really good friend, and I'm only going to look for them in half my class? Look for good friends everywhere, because good friends are what makes your heart light, what makes life fun to live, that makes people who will help bind you up, and those may be boys or girls. So don't worry about it. You don't have to have a boyfriend or girlfriend if you want to be friends with someone. Look for a good friend, no matter what kind of flavor they are. And when we focus on what good friendship is, it begins to take away that stigma and that intrusion of romance into their relationships, because it isn't romance. And therefore, if we never say that friendship is way more important and is what's really happening, then they begin to think that every time that they feel comforted by, encouraged by, delight in another human being, it might be because it's romantic. And we can unwind that and help our kids create a depth of relationship amongst them all. So that when the boyfriend-girlfriend thing pops up, that's a different special category rather than just, I really enjoy being around a person. The third thing, I think, is to consider the romance stories that we're telling them. I think I did a podcast segment on this, but I just wanted to re-hit it because it's so huge in 5 to 11s. This concept of what romance is and what you're looking for and what a boyfriend-girlfriend is about. And so often the stories that they watch from 5 to 11, a lot of the Disney stories often have a romance as a central part of that. And you know, we were all stunned when Frozen didn't have the main character, Elsa, have a romance, but the sidekick did. And well, it depends if you want to go deep into who was the main character of Frozen. But that sort of concept of romance being a key part of the stories that they hear, what they're learning constantly is romance is important, and it's all about someone finding you beautiful, or it's all about you looking at someone across the room and thinking, oh my goodness, the outside package that they have is so interesting. I don't even care about their insides. And there's so many messages that come across in the romance stories that our 5 to 11s are watching. And it's really helpful to wade into those, to sit and watch and laugh at them and pause and say, wait a minute. She walked in a dress, and this guy, without even knowing if she's kind, if she's funny, if she's faithful, if she lies, just goes over and says, I think you're amazing. I want to be with you. Does that seem like a wise thing to do? And to ask those questions and to talk about what we're looking at, and is that a good way of picking someone who's going to be close to your heart? That concept of what romance is and what you're choosing when you're choosing a boyfriend or girlfriend, we can begin to frame for them. Parenting for Faith, we talk a lot about framing. And what are we framing for our kids in terms of picking someone who can be that close to your life? Are they faithful with their heart? Do they want to guard you? Are they consistent in their behavior? Can they control themselves? All of those things that we would really want them to know about picking someone who's going to be trusted with your heart. But we feed them with romance stories that tell them almost different things. And so feel free to monitor and pick apart and create windows into how you see things and what you like and don't like about it. And pause and say, would you trust someone with your heart who just did that? And have those conversations. What romance are they seeing? And create windows into your own stories. If you're a single parent, you have had relationships in the past that may have been good for you and may have been bad for you, and you have these stories to tell, not out of a place of bitterness or anger, but out of a place of, I remember there's this one person in my life who took care of my heart in this way, or who saw past this into this, and I really loved that, and I would love that for you. And all of those wonderful things of who God made us to be and how he made us for relationship is really important to frame for our kids. Otherwise, they're just stuck dating whoever they're supposed to date when they're 11 and just sort of giving into that without any framework for that. And so creating a framework around romance is really helpful. And the last thing I wanted to talk about with this is about surfing the waves of the relationship stuff that gets talked about in this age group. Your kids will talk about, they'll come home at 10 and say, Susanna is now boyfriend and girlfriend with Zakib, and they'll have all these stories. And rather than just dismiss it, this is an amazing opportunity to sit with your kids and ask good questions. Good questions like, how did that happen? Are there lots of people who are getting together as boyfriends and girlfriends? What does that mean? What does that mean is a great question. What does that mean? What do they have to do when they're a boyfriend and girlfriend? Because often kids don't know, and you find fascinating things. So I remember talking to a kid, and the kid was like, it means you always have to carry her bag. And I'm like, oh, interesting. So you're like a servant? And we had a great conversation in church. I mean, we discussed absolutely nothing besides what it means to be a boyfriend and girlfriend with a bunch of 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds, because it was fascinating. They had all these rules. Yes, you can't play with your friends anymore. You only can play with her. Well, that's really interesting. So you can't have friends and have a boyfriend, girlfriend. Why is that? Well, because she gets jealous. Oh, so you like belong to her now? And to just have all of these really interesting questions, not to teach, but just to dig up what they're thinking and to challenge it is a really useful tool. It's also really useful when your kid comes home and announces that they have a boyfriend, girlfriend, to ask the what do you mean and what's the job requirement and how do you feel, but also to talk about all the things that happen in relationships, like jealousy and manipulation and possessiveness and the responsibility of, taking care of somebody else's heart and all of that stuff that you have. There's so many really interesting opportunities of what it's like, and how do you know when you're supposed to get out of it? Because, it's like you've sort of said yes to something, but I mean, does that mean you're her girlfriend forever? What does that mean? And all of those fascinating questions. So don't worry about getting out of it, because some of the things you can say is, sometimes this thing doesn't work out. And do you know when it's time to get out to protect your heart? And how do you do that? And how do you make good boundaries? And all of those things to consider. So there's this great opportunity of joy in listening to the stories of friendships and what that's like and how they're choosing and did that work out for you. And so have interesting surfing the waves conversations about this. Is there any questions you have, any circumstances you're in, any wisdom for each other that we might want to share now as we discuss? What I'm going to do, as always, is I'll pray for you, and then we'll look at any of the comments or questions or concerns or things you disagree with me about. Feel free, and then we'll wrap up. So let me pray, and then we'll see if there's anything further to discuss. God, I thank you that you have made us for relationship, for friendships, and for communities, and this aspect of a one-to-one relationship in the future that you have created space for in our lives. And God, our kids are trying to figure that out. Sometimes it pops up in weird ways, and sometimes it pops up in scary ways. But God, I pray that you would make every parent here bold to wade into it, imperfect as their answers may be, as interesting as their kids' lives are, that you would really make them strong and confident to wade in and ask the questions and to share their thoughts and to point out what's going on, that these parents may draw close in connection to their kids through this, that they may lay a healthy foundation, that their children may eventually walk into relationships that will bless them, that will be full of you, and that will have the kingdom in it. So I pray wonderful supernatural sleep for these parents and boldness to talk about the stuff that makes us feel uncomfortable. In Jesus' name, amen. Right. Well, we're not seeing any comments right now, so feel free to type it in as I tell you a bit what's coming up next. Next month is making space for doubt. Sometimes our kids struggle with doubt, and that is a normal part of children's spirituality. And we're going to talk about how we make space for that and how we walk alongside our kids in that. So that will be next month. A question has came up about how about my son who wants to be friends with the girl at school but gets teased so won't talk to her. That is a really common thing. And I would really encourage you to affirm your kid in what he values about her, and why that's a really great friendship, and to create windows into the friendships that you have with people of a different gender, to be able to say, oh yeah, I know my friend Elliot is just, he and I really get each other, and I love how he's the one that can make me laugh the most. And, you sort of have those things to model that in your life and say, I think that sounds like a really great friend to have. And so then what you're talking about is about the difficult choice of choosing a great friendship that would encourage your heart, or choosing what somebody else who doesn't care about your heart thinks. And that's a tough call, because sometimes it hurts our heart to be teased. But is not being teased worth not having such a great friend in your life that can encourage your heart and make you feel lighter and joyful? And friendships are precious and wonderful. And to let someone who doesn't like your heart stop you from having the awesome stuff is not okay, I don't think. Often what happens is kids don't know how to avoid the teasing. Often it's not the teasing itself that's the problem. It's they don't know how to respond. And so they sort of shut down. And so some of what your son may need is some role play on how to deal with it. So I've done this. I don't know how old your kid is, but I've done this with kids. You don't have to do it with something, but sometimes this. And so you can be like, all right, so like if this guy comes up to you and is like, you're like playing with a girl, you have cooties. What are you going to say? And often your son won't know what to say. And so to say, okay, how about we try? What are some things we can try? And you can practice, and you are a team together are going to try to figure out, what could you say? You could say, yes, because she's kind and funny and I'd rather spend time with her than you. Or you could say, girls don't have cooties. There's no scientific backing for that. Or, I don't care what you think. I'm going to play with who I want to play with. Or, well, you don't have to play with us. Feel free to play someplace else. If you can brainstorm a lot of different things to say, and you can pick the one you want, and then you can say, okay, tomorrow when you go play at school and you want to go play with your friend, try one of them. Which one are you going to try? Okay, let's practice again. Hey, blah, 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 blah. And you go, oh, excellent. Well, I like how you looked me in the eyes when you said that. That was great. Okay, tell me how it went. And then when your kid comes home, you're like, did you get the opportunity to try your line? Oh, fantastic. How did it work? Oh, didn't work. Okay. Should we try another one? Oh, yeah. What do you think would happen? And so you are a team trying to figure it out. The other thing that you might want to do is invite that girl round your house so that they can establish a friendship without being in the public eye, so that then they as a team can come up with something. I've known some kids who sort of come up with team answers to it. So like they'll try to get the bully will try to tease them about it, and they'll both be like, and then they'll do like a little handshake thing and be like, woo, what are you going to say about it? And then they sort of run off and play. And so they as a team decide to face it because they value their friendship more than they value what random guy says. And so I suggest you encourage them and quip, because often it's not about the teasing, it's about them feeling powerless in the face of teasing that stops them. And when you say good friendships are worth sacrificing for, good friendships are worth keeping, and we can figure out how to help you know how to respond so you can have the best for you, then that's really useful. Right, I don't see any other comments, so hopefully I'll see you guys next month for Making Space for Doubt. And in the meantime, go blacksmithing. Or do whatever that brings you joy, because I'll tell you, my soul needed that, and your soul probably needs it too. So I'd love to hear from you. If you have any other wisdom, please feel free to type in, ask more questions, and I'll respond to them on Facebook. But in the meantime, have a really blessed month, and I'll see you next month.